Hey everybody, this is Count MRVHS, and welcome back to Medieval Total War. This is one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm very excited to get into the campaign for today. We're going to get off the menu, though, because this music is quite loud. And then once we get into the campaign map, we'll talk a little bit more about the game and the goals. We're going to be playing an early Glorious Achievements game. And we're going to be playing as the Spanish. There's a little intro text here, which I am going to skip. This is probably worth reading. It's typically very detailed background information, but we're not super role-playing, I guess, today. This is more serious. This is more earnest. We have larger, grander goals in the name of investigation. What I hope to do with this campaign is get a better understanding of the inheritance mechanic that is native to the first Medieval Total War. So here we are on the campaign map, and once again, let me just welcome you to one of the best games in the world in terms of strategy games. So Medieval Total War, the first game, was released in 2002 and features this beautiful map of Europe and North Africa and the Middle East. It is a Risk-style map, as you can see, and your units, your armies, your strategic agents move from province to province. This is basically identical to the system that was used in the very first Total War game, Shogun 1, which I think was released in 2000 or so. And so this is just a couple of years later, and there's a lot of inherited mechanics from Shogun, but also a few things that are different. One of the things that was really interesting about Shogun, which I didn't know until relatively recently, is that you could inherit land in that game. There are a few different ways in which land can accrue to you. I can't remember all the details. I think it has something to do with being allied to a faction that's eliminated or something along those lines. But Medieval has an inheritance mechanic that is so rare as to practically be non-existent. And it all comes down to this unit here. This is the princess. Let's take a look at our princess Isabel. And a princess is an asset to her family, acting as an emissary of sorts. She can be married to a general to encourage his loyalty, and that's a mechanic that we can talk about in a minute. Or she can be married into another royal family to cement an alliance. Her new royal husband may then have a claim to her father's lands. So this last bit here is the reference to the potential for inheritance. This is something that we'll also see referenced in the game when we propose a marriage from our princess to another royal family, or between another princess into our royal family. So the way that we, as the player, could inherit land, in theory, is by marrying a foreign princess to our king, I suppose, or maybe our heir who then becomes the king. And there's a lot of uncertainty about this mechanic and how it works. Let me just read to you from the manual, from the 23-year-old physical edition of the manual that I'm holding in my hands right now that mentions princesses. It says, all it says is this: remember that all princesses give the faction she marries into a claim on the territory of her original faction. This can be important if the faction leader dies without immediate heirs to the throne. And so there is a clue there, because there are several ways that a faction can die without immediate heirs to the throne. The most obvious way is simply that the faction is eliminated in combat, right? You kill the king has no heirs, and the faction is destroyed. Now, if the faction had more territory than the province that you just conquered by killing the king, that territory will typically turn rebel. But if there were other royal families, other factions, that had married some of the princesses of that faction that you eliminated, they might inherit that extra land that you did not conquer. Again, this happens extremely rarely, and it's been a subject of some discussion for decades now on the old forums. And so you can see people, if you go to totalwar.org, going back 20 plus years, people talking about you know, how do you get this to happen? Or when did this happen? Or did this ever happen to you? No, I knew a guy, right? So it's extremely, extremely rare. What I would like to do, therefore, in this campaign is to see if we can make it happen. So we've started in the early period. That's going to give us the most amount of time to sort of explore the mechanic. The early period starts in 1087. Each turn advances the game world 1 year, and the game ends at the latest in 1453. So we've got, you know, almost 400 turns to play with here. There are some important differences between the different periods in terms of what units are available, so that will somewhat play a role here. But we're just going to be trying to make alliances, trying to use foreign princesses to see if we can inherit territory. So the first way, again, is by conquering and destroying the last living king of a dynasty. Now, the problem with that is, of course, if you are the person who is attacking the faction that you married into, you're probably not going to inherit then, right? Because I have tried that, right? And I remember going onto the forums probably decades ago saying, hey, this didn't work for me. How do I make this work? And I was told, well, you don't expect that to work, do you? Like, if you married into the family and then just conquered that royal family out of existence, they're not going to just hand over the territory to you, right? And I guess, right, I suppose that is justified. However, there are at least two other ways to ensure that this faction that you've married into meets an untimely demise. And the first is assassins. So assassins are an agent type that we do not yet have access to. This is going to require us to build some taverns. I think that requires us to get to the keep level. And then we will need to start training assassins. You drop an assassin onto an enemy agent or an enemy general, and if they kill that, you know, they start getting experience and improving their abilities. And it is possible to get your assassins up to, you know, 5 stars, 4 stars, and that's decent odds of killing certain kings. Now, what you probably want to do is try not to kill the king, but to try to kill the heirs. And that way, when the king just dies naturally of old age, I think it's harder to kill kings than it is to kill princes. He won't have anyone to inherit. His realm is going to potentially undergo a civil war or potentially just turn to rebels, but some of those might join your faction if you're still allied with them. The other method is inquisitors. So inquisitors are kind of like legal assassins. They are ways to kill enemy generals or family members, and they are only available to the Catholic factions, and they only work against Catholic factions. And they essentially, by getting good experience, they can burn generals at the stake, and that general dies. You can do this while both assassinating and inquisiting, for lack of a better word. You can do both of those methods while still remaining allied to the target faction. So what I'm going to want to do is to get some princesses to marry into my family. I will then want to have a stable of really high experience assassins and really high experience inquisitors, and I will then want to swarm that enemy faction with those agents and try to eliminate them as much as possible. That's going to require that I use a lot of agents for scouting, so I'll want like bishops and emissaries, I'll want spies, right? I'll want to do all the tricks that I have strategically in this game to try to ensure that that I know what's going on, I know where the heirs are, I know how old the target king is, and all of this is, I think, complicated by the fact that there is a bit of a time factor here. So let's look at my king, and let's actually get rid of the Glorious Achievements button. It's driving me nuts. So my king is Alfonso VI. He is 28, and he actually looks awesome. He's got 4 influence, that's pretty standard. He's got 5 piety, 5 dread, 7 command, is that right? He's got 7 command. He's got 5 acumen. All of these things are fantastic. He's also got a field defense specialist trait, which is just amazing. So I'm coming into this campaign cold. I never play the Spanish. And we'll talk about why I am playing the Spanish today in a minute. So King Alfonso VI is 28. He's already married, and I suspect, yes, he's already got some heirs. So he's got, of course, his oldest child is Princess Isabel. Now, she's 18, he's 28. Did he have her when he was 10? Did he fought? Let's not get into the logistics of this too much. But let's just say that he's got some sons and another daughter coming along in a few years. When they come of age, they will be eligible for marriage, the princes anyway. And I will want to pay particular attention to my heir marrying a foreign princess. So what I will want to do in the beginning of the game, strategically, is avoid alliance offers, just deny them outright, until I get a princess coming who can marry Prince Alfonso, because he is going to be my heir. When he comes of age, I assume he's supposed to be the son of what is this, Alfonso VI. So his son Alfonso is going to come and take over, and even when Sancho comes of age, he's just going to be a spare heir. So he's not going to be super important. What I'm going to then want to do is make sure that Prince Alfonso marries a princess of a faction that is likely to become wiped out, but also leave some territory behind. So let's consider Aragon, for example. Aragon is the closest faction nearby. They're probably going to start having princesses relatively soon, and they only have a single province. They tend to be eliminated fairly quickly because they only have one province at the beginning of the campaign. I think they're the only faction that does. However, that in itself is a problem for inheriting their land, because if they are eliminated through conquest, they won't be leaving behind any land to inherit, right? So it may not be great for me to aim for them as in terms of princesses, because I probably won't inherit any land from them, even if they are wiped out. So what about the other nearby factions? Well, Muslim factions like the Almohads, immediately to my south, do not have princesses. So that means three factions, the Muslims, the Egyptians, and the Turks, will not be relevant for this inheritance mechanic. However, the Byzantines do have princesses, and it would be awesome to inherit Byzantine territory. I don't know that it's very likely, in part because the Byzantines in early tend to do very well. They've got very high command royalty, so the king is going to be really hard to kill. High command, I believe, translates into difficulty of assassination. And so all of his sons are going to be awesome generals too. And the faction does well, so it's not going to die out through conquest, right? It's not going to get quickly gobbled up, and they're probably going to be building a lot of things here to ensure that they are secure. One of the things in terms of buildings that I will need to watch out for as I try to use assassins here is border forts. So we don't have any just yet, but if we look here at our building options, we have watchtowers. They basically allow you to look into other provinces. So for example, right now in Castile, I can look down in Cordoba and I can see that there is a little bit of orange in the banner here that's in the city, but I can't see what this is. I'm trying to right click, I can't see what units it has. I can right click the province and I can see that, you know, what their loyalty is, but I can't see any of the buildings that are in this settlement. So I don't know what they have here. But if I were to build a watchtower here, which is probably a good opening build, then I would be able to see into every province that Castile borders. So that would be everything around here except Portugal, basically, because we don't quite touch it. That means that I would know exactly what units are in these armies. I would know exactly what buildings are in these provinces. And the second level of watchtowers upgrades to a border fort. Watchtowers don't do anything in terms of security. They just let you see into neighboring territories. Border forts, though, are OP. They are OP in this game, and I don't like to build them typically. I will be doing it. It's tough because on the one hand, they do offer fantastic security against enemy agents, spies and assassins, the invisible agents that other factions can't see. So you can never see an enemy spy or an enemy assassin. But if you build a border fort, you have very good odds of intercepting them when they try to come into your province. And if other factions are building border forts in their provinces, it's going to be very hard for me to get spies and assassins through. Fortunately, inquisitors, because they are legal, do not get caught by border forts, although they still can be subject to assassination. So the question is, do I want to secure my kingdom by building border forts? It seems like a no-brainer. They're very cheap. On the other hand, though, border forts steal experience from your own subterfuge agents. So once I get to the point where I can build spies and assassins, particularly assassins, because I'm going to be using them aggressively, I want to make sure that my assassins are going to be getting credit for killing enemy spies and assassins who try to enter my territories. That's going to be a cheap, easy way, low risk, for me to level up my subterfuge agents. Just leaving them in the home territories, especially a place with a port, because agents can move quickly through places with ports, and just letting them kill what they can. So my assassins are going to be my dragnet. They're going to level up that way. But if I have a single border fort in the province, the border fort is going to be doing all the killing, and the assassins will not get the XP. At least in my experience, they don't. So I'll probably be staying away from border forts for that reason. It makes my agents better. Okay, what else do we need to talk about? So, geez, I guess that about does it. You know, in terms of targets, okay, let's think about targets in terms of goals for the campaign. Obviously, the main goal here is not so much to win the campaign, but to see if we can inherit land and see if we can build up some, some information, some raw data based on experimentation that will be on record for figuring out how we can use this mechanic. I class the inheritance mechanic in Medieval Total War as highly attractive as the protectorate mechanic in Rome Total War. That was another mechanic in another, by now old game, where you would open up the diplomacy screen and you would see the option, become protectorate as an offer, and you would wonder why they even included it, because the game would never allow you to make another faction your protectorate. Over years of seeing other people play the game, watching other videos, trying out my own stuff, I was finally able to figure the formula basically to getting protectorates in Rome Total War, and that opened up a really fun, different way to play that game. So what I'm hoping, and I don't have a lot of hope for this because I think there's a lot of randomness and a lot of things that can foul it up, but I'm hoping that somehow over the course of this campaign we can at least get some data together and maybe see inheritance working in action, and then open up some new ways to play Medieval 1. Now, there are already a couple of fun ways to play this game. When I started up the campaign here, I went for Glorious Achievements mode rather than Conquest. Conquest involves you basically conquering 2/3 of the map and you win, or 100% of the map and you win. You go for a short victory, and then when you get the 2/3 provinces, a little message will say, "Congratulations, do you want to claim this lesser victory, or do you want to go on to 100%? And I never go for 100%. As soon as I discovered Glorious Achievements mode, I went for that because it seems much more fun. So Glorious Achievements is not necessarily based on the number of provinces you own. It instead is based on the number of points you have. So each faction has a different number of goals and points for achieving each goal. For the Catholic factions, at least the ones that can crusade, you get some points in early for crusading. So if you choose to start in 1087 in the early period like I have, you got about 100 years during which you can crusade to certain places and get a certain number of points for them. I think all the Catholic factions have basically the same, with the exception of Aragon, which only gets points for taking Antioch for some reason. That's kind of cool that it's different, but every other Catholic faction gets Antioch, which will give them 3 points, Edessa, which will give them 1, Palestine, which is where Jerusalem is located, I'll give them, 9 or whatever this is, and then finally Tripoli, which gives you 2. So these points are going to be something that you can aim for. Grand scheme, these are like a one-off, and so they're not super essential, because over the course of a long campaign you can come back from missing these points. It's very fun to try to get them, but I'm not necessarily going to be going for it in this campaign, in part because crusades are a little tricky. We're on the extreme west end of the map, and these are the 4 crusading provinces: Edessa, Antioch for 3, Tripoli for 2, I think Edessa's 1, and Palestine for like 8 or 9. So you could go and get 15 points, and that's pretty decent. However, then you have to hold this territory, you have to build it up. Now, you can get very wealthy by establishing trade routes from these territories across the Mediterranean, but it's a whole thing, and I want to keep very tightly focused on my inheritance game. The other reason is I think I will be using crusades, but I will be using them as a sort of securing the homeland method. I'm going to be kind of doing what the Spanish did historically, certainly later on, and that is a little bit of a reconquista. I'm going to use my crusades for that. The Almohads, I don't believe we can really live in peace with the Almohads. Now, I would love nothing more than to just sit and build tall and get my assassins and grand inquisitors cranked up in terms of XP, and then just try to inherit land. But I don't think I'm going to get the opportunity to just sit and build. I'm going to try to hold off, but if I see the Almohads getting like Portugal and Valencia, for example, and then building up, this is just too vulnerable to sustain, 2 provinces here. And in terms of money, we're not making a ton, 451. So I'm going to need to expand a little bit early on, and that's probably going to invite some competition, certainly from these guys. And I can use crusades very well, very easily to level up my king's influence and conquer territories that are important to me and just make the game a bit easier. So I'm going to be focusing, on this, I think, before I get over here. However, there is one exception to that, and that is the province of Syria. Syria is a province that has a hidden bonus. So a lot of provinces on the map have bonuses for certain units. So I don't think we have any around here. We do here, right? Well, we're going to come back to that. Okay, here's one. Leon, Knights of Santiago. So let's say we can train some Knights of Santiago. Units of this type trained here in Leon gain a +1 Valor bonus. Now, this is an example of a Valor bonus that I'm not sure if it quite works, because Knights of Santiago are a crusading unit, and you can't, recruit them like you recruit other units. I'm going to test that out. I'm going to see if it works here by building my chapter house here and trying to crusade out of Leon, and see if they come of age, the knights that pop up in the crusade, if they come with a +1 Valor bonus. And by the way, Valor is basically experience in this game. But basically, this is how the Valor bonuses work. So most of them are geared towards military units. You get super valored peasants in Provence, for example. You get chivalric knights in Toulouse with a +1 honor Valor bonus. You get longbowmen in Wales with a +1 Valor bonus. You get Bulgarian brigands. Actually, I don't think there's a Valor bonus. I think you just get them in Bulgaria. You can only get them there. Cataphracts in Constantinople, right? So lots of places on the map have bonuses that we'll see as we play and expand that gear toward particular units. Castile is interesting in that it gives a +1 Valor bonus to its Inquisitors. Now, that's pretty cool early on before we get to Grand Inquisitors. So we will be making use of this. I'm going to make this my religious agent province, and that means I'm going to be going up the tech tree. We can already make churches here. We can make a chapter house immediately here, so it might make sense to do that. But once we get the keep, we will be able to get things, or the castle, be able to get things like a monastery, which is where I believe we get Inquisitors from. And then we get like a reliquary, I think it is, which gives us our Grand Inquisitors. So Grand Inquisitors are just a souped up version of the Inquisitor, and sadly they don't get this +1 bonus, but they're so much better, I think, that we're still going to want to use Grand Inquisitors. But regardless, we're going to see how it goes. We're going to do a bunch of stuff in Castile. All right, so what about Syria? Syria gives a Valor bonus to a military unit. I want to say it's Nizaris or something like that. But hidden underneath that, not displayed on the map, is a +1 or +2 actually Valor bonus to assassins trained out of here. This is intended to reflect the old man of the mountain, right? And his assassin cult, basically. So if you conquer Syria and build up your taverns, you can have, I believe, 5-star assassins just out of Syria, because you can get up to higher upgrades of the tavern will have your assassins starting at a higher level of experience already, up to I think +3, and with Syria that becomes +5. So it may be a good idea for me to get over here relatively soon to conquer Syria, to hold it and to sort of develop my assassins as well. So we'll have to see how things are going to go. I want to get agents out there first. I don't want to just blunder into the Middle East. I want to make sure that I can hold it. And the other thing to worry about here is, obviously this is going to be a very rich target for crusades. The game does send crusades. So the AI factions, Catholic factions, will be trying to get this. It's going to be fought over by the Byzantines, by the Egyptians, by the Turks. And that means that it's going to be impossible for us to play neutral and small once we start doing this. That may screw up our diplomacy a little bit and make it tougher for us to inherit things. So I've got to balance that out, right? The advantage of getting super assassins versus the potential hassle of being at war with a bunch of factions. Now, if this has gone over to Muslim factions, that's actually fine because I'm not too worried. But if there's a lot of successful crusades over here, like the English, the Germans, the French end up down here, and I have to fight them, I don't want that. I want a peaceful campaign with the people that I can inherit from. So if the Byzantines do well, again, I don't necessarily want to step on their toes. Now, I should say that the Byzantines are doubly tricky because not only are they hard to assassinate, but they cannot be inquisited. You cannot send an inquisitor after Byzantine nobility because they are not a Catholic faction. They are Orthodox. This is after the Great Schism, after all. So we are going to have our work cut out for us if we want to deal with Byzantine inheritance. So maybe it's best just to send crusades over and grab Syria. We'll be thinking about it. The other final big consideration over here is something that's going to happen in a couple hundred years, and that is the emergence of the Mongol hordes, which is an awesome mechanic that that triggers around 1240 or so. And so this is a massive multi-stack invasion of typically Volga, Bulgaria, Khazar, potentially sometimes Georgia. But it's certainly clustered around Khazar. And the Mongols can expand very widely and cause a lot of chaos, and they can come down into here very easily. So if I'm over just sort of establishing myself in Syria, right, around 1200, I may not have time to build up to withstand a Mongol onslaught. And if I'm taking Syria, that's just like one step away from Georgia, right? So this is going to be a bit tricky. Okay, enough rambling. Let's get into the actual game here. Let's see what we're working with. All right, loyalty is going to be bad. If I wanted to test this, probably what I should have done is not gone with expert, but I want to have this be an enjoyable campaign too. I want to have a bit of challenge to make things interesting. So we start off with some rather lame units initially. We've got peasants. Archers are fine. Spanish Jeanettes are actually really interesting. So I will train, some of them. And we've also got another urban militia. Okay. So far, nobody's looking fantastic. As usual, the peasants are doing best in terms of acumen. And everyone is looking pretty disloyal. I think I want to get the Jeanettes out of here. And that's sufficient. We've got 160 men here. We can raise taxes and grid them up to very high. Now, one of the things also that I've read on the forums, for whatever it's worth, and it may be worth nothing, is that taxes and local happiness across your kingdom may affect the likelihood of inheritance. That sounds like an urban legend to me, so I am not sure at all that that's the case. But we're going to see if it is. Now, I haven't done anything yet. I haven't queued up any buildings. There's a potential here that we could maybe try bribing El Cid, right? El Cid is this general. He's a 5-star general, and he may, what does he get? I think Spanish Jeanettes. It may be worth trying. What is it to take Navarre, though? All right, that's much cheaper. And maybe I give Valencia a couple of turns. Let's try this, because I do need some units fast, and I need some guys that are decent. We're gonna send the princess. Start sending her around someplace. Let's go. Yeah, let's go to Venice. These are ports on the map, and ports tend to be magnets for agents. And so it'll take us a while for the princess to get over there. But we're going to build ports of our own, especially in Castile, but also in Leon, because these both have tradable goods. And so they will allow us to get some naval trade. Castile is also great, and Leon, actually, because they both have iron. So we're going to make really good weapon smiths, and you need iron to make that. And that's going to improve the attack stats of our units, and that's fantastic for a Catholic faction, which has, you know, swords and knights and things like that. So I think I'm going to actually maybe not build anything this first turn, because I want to make sure we're going to get that bribe. Navarre is going to bring in a little bit of money. It's also got iron. More importantly, it's got mountains up here, and that means that we're going to have an easier time defending it from the north. So let's just end the year. All right. Bribery failed. All right, who's got weak principles? Okay, this guy right here, weak principles. So that's unfortunate, but there's not too much that we can do about it, and I don't think it's very likely he's going to be bribed anyway. But if someone were to try, it would cost them 20% less. Okay, so now the cost has gone up. We are able to try again, but it's just going to be more expensive. So now it was 1,300, now it's 1,900. The question is it worth it for getting 2 peasants and a spearman unit, especially since one of these guys is a man of principle? I don't think so. So I think we actually are going to probably need to invade. Fortunately, Castile is pretty well built up. So what do we need here? Let's see. I want this Jeanette, this disloyal guy, to be with the king. Both of them, I guess. And so we're going to want to build, and we can build Jeanettes immediately in Leon. That's great. All right, I think we just need some basic units. So like spearmen. Very cheap support costs. But let's take a quick look at our units, although this is not the main focus of the campaign here. Spearmen are, you know, just absolutely basic. We also have, though, a unique unit for us, which is Spanish javelin men. I believe the Aragonese get this unit as well. So these are actually quite strong in the right circumstances, but you need a unit to pin the unit that they're trying to shoot at, so we're going to go with spearmen. We're going to want to do a lot of archers, a lot of Jeanettes. They are relatively cheap, actually. 40 men, 50 gold. Not too bad for what they are. They're another javelin unit, so we can actually have an interesting kind of mix. I'm going to get a watchtower here that helps a little bit with public order. And a watchtower here, too, just to see what we're getting involved with. Now, I'm assuming that this was a bribery attempt in Valencia to get El Cid that failed. So let's just see how that's going to go. And the princess is still moving. All right, so we've got another daughter here. That's fine. In a couple of turns, we're going to start seeing princesses moving around the map. We can see that Toulouse has nothing going on, no buildings yet, really. But this is our chivalric knight bonus, so this is a great one. We could take this because we do get chivalric knights eventually. So, you know, if we're in the area, it's maybe worth picking up Toulouse. But again, not really the goal. Aragon gets a bonus to gun galleys, which is interesting. And I don't really know much about that, but Aragon is the faction I prefer to play just for fun, because they do have an interesting start with just the one province, and it feels like the underdog. Okay, so I think I want to keep going with spearmen. Yeah. And I need to leave one unit behind, so that's going to be the peasants. We're going to bring the king up. Alfonso is going to be coming of age this turn. I think it is worth taking Navarre. We don't want to go for Valencia yet because it's too tough to take. So we'll try that. We'll try bribery, right? And here's El Cid. Oh, look at that. They get a unique portrait for him and everything. He's got 6 dread. Got 5 command stars. He's an expert attacker, so +2 command when attacking. And a gambler. So this is a bad thing. -10. for agriculture and trade. So I don't know if he always has gambler, but expert attacker, that's I believe a guarantee. So this is really worth it. You probably don't want to make him a duke of something if you want it to make a lot of money. But I would love to get him as a bribe, but I just don't think we have the cash on expert difficulty to do that. Honestly, we want to keep our footprint kind of small initially. If someone wants to start taking out this dangerous general for me, that'd be fine. But if this bribery fails, I'm going to be looking here. They've got some feudal knights, a couple of archers, one of which is a 2-star, although... Okay, so that's native 2 stars. I thought Portugal, the title would give them some command, but it doesn't. But it gives acumen, which is nice. So a couple of archers, a couple of spearmen. Those feudal knights would be really nice to have this early in the game, but I don't know if it's going to work. Okay, so we're building spears. Let's again hold off on building for another turn or two. Alright, I can see that the Almohads are moving, probably moving towards Valencia or Portugal. Okay, so here, 2 peasants and a spearman unit. So this is going to be pretty straightforward. Now, I'm strongly tempted to auto-calc this, but given that it is our king, I probably ought to do it. And we don't quite have the heir yet. I don't think we received that message that he came of age. So there could be a disaster. I think the AI, the auto-calc, is pretty good about not accidentally throwing your general in, but I believe cavalry units do take disproportionate casualties on auto-resolve. I did if you're interested in auto-resolve sort of in more detail, I did a campaign of the Turks where I only auto-resolved battles, I think, except with the king and maybe the heir. And I auto-managed the building and all of that stuff. It was actually rather fun, so I was only able to dictate a few specific things. So we'll attack. We've got an archer. They don't have anything. So we could just group the guys up here, which is what I'm going to do. Pretty basic. We've got 2 Jeanettes in our cav, so let's just go. We're going to be way up there. Turn. All right, yes, we're close enough to hit him. And yes, I'm glad we're taking out the spearmen, so it's just peasants now. Okay, archers out of ammo. Is that right? Yes. And so now we'll just ungroup him. Everyone else will move up this way. So we've got urban, militia, and spearmen. All of our guys have increased valor because of our king's command. Every 2 command stars gives the units under him +1 valor bonus. Alright, let's not speed through the battle here. Okay. Now let's just move these guys kind of one at a time. With Jeanettes, the trick is they throw javelins. Like, this is not a best target for them to use. 85 men, down to 81. You want to use them against, like, armored targets. And you don't want them to be skirmishing because, as you can see, they're just going to skirmish away from the enemy. Alright, let's go here. Let's get the Jeanettes out of the way. They're trying to move around. Alright, now it's a bit tricky again because the unit is spread out, so we're gonna actually get in combat, which is not what I want. Okay. Interesting. I don't think there's any place for them to run to. They haven't built a fort yet. So it's not essential. Let's throw the Jeanettes in. any other Jeanettes, and he should be able to clean it up. Okay, so we'll just have the king run down the peasants. Maybe get a little bit of experience or something. And we've got them all off the field. We've got some captured soldiers. If you want to work up your general's dread, you can execute them during battle. But doing that like 3 times gives them theoretically some negative traits. Okay, so we've conquered Navarre. And now I think I want to work up... Jeez. I'm undecided yet. So execute them all would work towards the dread of your general. Or maybe your king in this case. Release them all would work up or work down the dread. It would decrease the dread. And execute the ringleaders would kind of do neither, I suppose. Release them all might have some bonuses for happiness or something, but let's execute the ringleaders. We'll just kind of go with that either way. All right, the Germans are the largest. Okay, so an emissary is saying we need to give them more money. Do we want to modify? I'm going to raise the offer to the advised amount and hope that works, but it probably won't. It's just under our max. It wants us to spend 5,460. We've only got 5,665. But let's raise the offer to the advised amount. And it's accepted. Oh, wow. Whoa. Amazing. Wow. Okay. I didn't know this. Now, probably the few times I have tried this, I've been the Aragonese, and I rarely play the Almohads, though I do want to try a campaign as them. But the Aragonese probably have a bit less money, right? And this time I specifically held off building, so I've got 7 stars? Oh, because he's attacking currently. He's quote-unquote attacking. You can see the stance there. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so we got El Cid. He's also no longer a gambler, interestingly. That went away. Wow, okay. Wow. Oh, this is great news. All right, we may have to use our princess to get his loyalty, and we may want to make him duke. We've got a couple of titles here. So each province has a title for a lordship, and these are actually quite good. So 2 loyalty. The bare minimum province is going to give you 1 point of loyalty. And that's important because loyalty is an important stat. If we look at the Jeanette guy with the single loyalty, this is a guy, as it says, this man is likely to be the cause of many of your problems both at home and abroad. Remove him and you will probably solve many of your rebellion difficulties. So loyalty we want to watch for ourselves, but also for our rivals, and particularly those who we want to inherit from. Because a lot of disloyal generals may mean that the faction leader is weak and has low influence, and therefore maybe is easier to assassinate, and or there may be a civil war which may eliminate the faction as a result of that. So we want to keep an eye on this stat. For us, loyalty is going to be a bit tricky because our influence is probably going to be low initially, right? It's not super high here, and we're not conquering a lot. The other ways to increase influence are to successfully crusade. That gives you, I think, 1 point. And to have your homelands. That's going to increase while you're playing Glorious Achievements. Crusading gives you, I think, a lot of influence, like conquering crusade targets. And if you sit on your homelands, if you're playing Glorious Achievements, you should eventually be doing okay, but it might take us a while to get there. So anyway, we're going to want to offer him maybe a title. This is a provincial title, wow, which is just so good. And then we could also offer him Lord Chamberlain, which might be worth it. So I might make him the Duke of Castile. But we'll see what Valencia gives, because it might also be command. All right, we've got Navarre. This is a pretty basic province. There's not a lot great here. Not really worth it in terms of income. But it does at least have iron. And really, this is a strategic province to take. It's a border between us and, basically France. All right, so we have our princess here with a couple of others. And we can sort of see what they're doing. So this emissary is going for Alfonso VI. So he's going for my king. She is trying to marry into the Aragonese, which is unfortunate. But we're getting a potential offer here for for the Germans. Now, the problem is we don't have a prince yet. Oh, no, he is. He came of age. All right, perfect. So when she arrives, that's going to turn into a marriage offer. And I think we're going to say yes. Germany would be really interesting to try to inherit because they have a lot of territory and they're weak initially. Now, I don't know that we're going to be able to make this work with the first generation because we don't have like any infrastructure in place. But we may as well go for it, right? Because Alfonso, Prince Alfonso, was only 16. So if he gets married in a couple of years, he's going to have maybe 50 years of life ahead of him. And for a good chunk of that anyway, he's going to be the king once his dad or older brother or whatever dies. So, yeah, I think we're going to go for that. Now, unfortunately, we can't really build anything here, but I can afford to do watchtowers. All right, so, and I'm also very impressed that Alfonso is so loyal. Usually princes coming of age are disloyal. So secret adultery, he's been having an affair. This eventually, if it's uncovered, can hurt his piety, which can be a problem if there is inquisitors running around. It's easier for them to burn at the stake family members who have low piety. All right, I think we'll keep our king up here in Navarre. And we're going to see how the Almohads respond to this. Now that we've got watchtowers, we can see what they've got. And this is kind of intimidating. So their peasants are not a problem. Their archers are not really a problem. But these guys, Almohad urban militia, are very, very dangerous, especially in the early period. They do not have armor piercing, but they are a tough unit. Heavily armored, good attack, good defense. They're basically like feudal men-at-arms, I think. But they can get him really early on. And we don't have anything that's a direct answer to that. Our urban militia are good against armored units. But, what do they get? I think 60 men per unit here. So it's just, we're going to have to use our cav. And it is going to be challenging. So I'm going to want to see if we can secure our borders right with these guys, make sure we've got alliances and don't become a target. And then we're going to want to think about crusading down south. We don't want to let those urban militia start building up too high. Okay, we got Valencia. Watchtowers in Navarre. So let's just check that. All right, we're going to go up to high taxes. Everything else is good. But yeah, Valencia is looking pretty bad. All right, and his loyalty is low. Expert attacker, weak principles. Got a unit of peasants at least. I think I'm going to go with watchtowers right off. Again, trying to save some money here. But that almost doubled our income. Taking Valencia. It's already got a farming upgrade, which is awesome. That's going to allow us to get stables. There's no unit bonuses out of here, but it does have a tradable good. And that's actually great because... So now all three of these have a trade item. And we can start getting ships into the ports over here. So it's awesome to get Valencia this early. The only problem is it's probably going to be a target for Aragon. So we may have to worry about that. Let's move some units in, though. I'm going to move you in, and that's looking very good. All right, we're just going to keep that as it is. And as much as I'd love to start building... up to taverns and getting assassins going, we don't have the money for a keep. So I think it's more important to start thinking about forts. Yeah, so that's half of our money gone. All right, but we can actually now move our emissary around. And we won't want to keep him here. Let's just see what this would cost. 6,000, so that's a lot of money. So I'm going to hold off on Portugal. And I may ignore it for a while. But let's move him up to, Normandy. We haven't gotten any alerts about factions going to war, but the Byzantines and the Aragonese are allied. The Egyptians are allied with the Sicilians and the Turks. And the Italians and the Hungarians. And the Pope has allied with Sicily. All right. This is fairly typical, I think. All right, we've got another son eventually. Okay, Princess Flora of the Sicilians is going to try to marry an Italian prince. That's fine. Again, I think we've got a German princess coming our way. Here she is. Now, it says offering alliance. What I hope is that this is actually going to turn into a marriage offer. But we'll see, because like it may unfortunately be the case that she started her move before the heir came of age, and so it may not be registered as a marriage offer. We'll have to see. All right, making 900. That is awesome. All right, so we've got now 1,000. And I think, again, we need to hold on to Valencia, so we'll spend 400 of that on a fort. And what do we want to do in Castile? I think a cheap, easy thing is urban militia and town watch, and I think this is going to improve public order as well. Maybe it doesn't. I think it does. All right, now Princess is just sitting in Venice. And did we forget to give El Cid any title? Yeah, we absolutely did. Okay. So I think I'm going to make him Duke of Castile. That's going to even out his stars from 5 to 6. And I'm going to give him this as well, so he's going to be incredibly loyal. And Castile is now making 789. So now that basically added a couple hundred gold per turn to our income by doing something that's very basic. Awesome. All right, so we're spending 600. So we should still be making a bit of a profit. And I think, yeah, let's go to Constantinople just to see how they look. Oh, awesome. Okay, cash arrives in recognition of your services to God and Mother Church. The Pope has granted you 1,000 florins. Now, why do we get this? Well, we're not at war with any Catholics. Maybe that's it. Maybe the Pope is just feeling bad for us. I'm not sure. This does happen typically early in the game, and it's rare that it happens later. So, yeah, we'll go with it. Okay, Hungary has sent an emissary. Now, that looks like a straight-up emissary. I'm going to hold off. All right, yeah, there's the princess. That's lame. Okay, so we will not accept the offer. We're going to use our emissary to try to marry that princess. All right, now this we have to be careful of. This is an emissary from the King of England who is trying to marry our princess, right? Who was over there, but I think she moved over to Constantinople. So we can't see her on the map anymore. But we want to say no to that, I believe. Yes, because we want the princess around for a little while as an agent. And this may mean that the English will be inclined to accept a marriage request from us. All right, get another daughter. That's fine. Okay, so what I want to do now is actually, we're going to change course. We're going to go down here and try to marry Princess Jutta. She's 22. See if she will marry Alfonso, who is 3 years her junior. All right, yes, here we are, Constantinople. There's the English emissary who is trying to marry Isabel. Now, if we've got nothing else to do for her in like 10 years, we will want to marry her off somewhere, probably, possibly, because she will just age out. At around 35 or so, she goes into a nunnery and disappears from the map if she's not married. So it may be worthwhile to see about getting an alliance or use her to shore up loyalty of a general, like we can see about making El Cid like super, super loyal. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's got 9 stars of command, but things can happen. 9 shields of loyalty. And we can get this up to 10, but things can happen to decrease this. Like, for example, if we lose Castile, then he loses the benefit of that 4 loyalty, right? And the other 2 loyalty from the Lord Chamberlain. right? So that brings him back down to his base of 3. And if, meanwhile, we've lost a homeland, our king's influence is probably going down, and the loyalty of the generals is going down. So all of this can cascade relatively rapidly. So it might be worth shoring him up because he's just really cool. I want to keep his dynasty alive. Okay, so we've got a couple of years for those forts, and we can build in Castile, and we've got enough money to do it. So let's go keep. And I also think we should be building. As soon as we get the fort here, I'm going to pull out of Navarre, but I don't want to risk losing it. Now, Aragon is such a problem because they border Navarre, Castile, and Valencia. Now, if they attack down here, we're going to defend across a river, which is nice. I think there's 2 bridges, though, at this river. If they invade into Navarre, it's going to be mountainous. We can probably take advantage of that. But if they invade into Castile, into Castile, it's going to be relatively easy for them. It's going to be hills, but they may do it because they got nowhere else to go unless they want to attack the French. All right, so we're trying to marry that princess. Let's move you. There's no wars going on, right? No wars going on. So maybe we'll keep you in Constantinople for a few years. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, Novgorod, that's right. Early era, we don't have Russians, you have the unplayable people of Novgorod, which is very sad that they're unplayable, but I think it's relatively easy to make it so that they are playable. You don't get the glorious achievements. Really, the thing is you play the XL mod if you want to play the glorious achievements for these other factions and lots of other factions too, which is maybe something we will do on the channel at some point. Okay, Poland. Now again, it says emissary. In this case, it is an emissary, but it also said emissary with the German, and that was a princess. So we want to just be aware of who's really asking. And again, I'm going to say no, because I want to do the asking. And we get another son. Oh, great. So he's just honest. +1 loyalty. The reason that we want to be initiating these alliances is because if they're interested in allying with us, that means that they're probably going to say yes to a princess request from us. But even if that falls through and we really want the alliance anyway, our emissary will get the valor bonus from working the alliance, right? If we initiate. So it's better to be the initiator. Okay, so here we've got the town watch. I think we want to go straight for keep here too. I know it's kind of like a long ways to wait, but let's train up an urban militia in the meantime. Let's train an archer in the meantime, and then just end the year. All right, so now we get another marriageable prince. All right, and Deus Vult. So this is the sort of unofficial call to the Crusades. You can crusade theoretically at any time, but practically you don't have the infrastructure before this point, or really before around the year 1100, sadly. There's no faction on the map, I think, that can crusade any earlier. Actually, no, we can, can't we? Yeah, because like we could have built a chapter house immediately in 4 years, so starting in 1087, so 1091, and then building a crusade marker takes 4 years. So we could just be starting a crusade right now if we gunned for it straight off. Which is probably, I don't know, we probably should have. In some ways, it might have been a nice move to have the marker available so that we could use it if we want. All right, so here we've got Prince Sancho. He's a natural leader, which is awesome. +2 morale, +1 loyalty. He leads men from the front, gaining much respect and inspiring his men to greater efforts. But secret blackmailer. This could be really bad if it gets discovered. And the way these secret traits get discovered is by enemy spies or your own spies. You can spy on your own guys, and that will hurt the loyalty. So this will maybe eventually turn into blackmailer, which is, I think, -3. And he's sitting at only 5 right now, so that would be down to 2. So that's not too good. Now, he is a very high command guy, So I'm going to put him down here for now because he's got 5 shields, and that's okay. And he would be nice to be leading if we were attacked by Aragon, although they would probably just destroy us if they attacked, unfortunately. Now, sadly, Leon does border Cordoba, so that means they can attack again any 3 of our provinces. We really need to regularize our borders, but I want to do it with crusades if I can hold off that long. Okay. So we do have a fort, though, completed in Navarre. Let's see now. And again, there's no obvious wars. Let's see if we can move out of here with any confidence. Okay, I think that's all right. And actually, maybe I can leave Prince Sancho up here because we've got King Alfonso in Castile, and he'll be taking over there. All right, so that's still good. We got very high taxes. We'll go high in Valencia, making 1,100 a turn. So I want to build in Navarre. What do I want to go with? You know, an inn could be a useful thing. Let's do it. I don't necessarily want to invest a whole lot in the infrastructure up here anyway. But let's see. Let's go with some javelin men for that, and maybe I will go for some more Jeannettes. All right, beautiful. We caught up to the princess. I was just starting to worry. Okay, wife has given birth to a daughter. Okay, now, what I want to do now is keep notes of this. Prince Alfonso is married to a German princess. She's 3 years older than him. Now, the game, as far as I'm aware, I don't know if it tracks the princess's lifespan. She's not a piece anymore. The German princess is gone from the board, and she's here, right? She's married to Prince Alfonso. If the game tracks her age, theoretically, she could die, right? Of old age at some point. And maybe that happens before her husband dies. And if that's the case, does that have any implications for inheritance? That's probably not going to happen in this generation anyway, because I don't think the Germans are going to get wiped out within his lifetime. But, you know, if that does happen, what are the implications for the princess's lifespan, if any? But we have to remember that. So we want to stay allied with the Germans, which we're not actually, which is interesting. Okay, so okay, so where's my emissary now? All right, right up here. All right, he's still got just the 1 valor from bribing. I don't know if getting the marriage offer actually increases the valor, but let's go ahead and ally with the Germans. If we can find an emissary of theirs. And there's one right here. And that'll take us right to the king. So he's trying to marry into the Hungarian royal family. And he's just doing spying at Constantinople. All right, Princess Isabel is 27. Let's use her. Well, I know there's no wars going on up there anyway, so it doesn't really matter right now. I know that the Germans are not, like, imminently in trouble. But we do have another princess. Let's send her up to up to Friesland. So the Germans are building, at least. They own Friesland. They're building a port there. Okay. Just checking my other heirs. Fernando. So it's going to be a while before we get any others. Princess Teresa is going to be next, and then Fernando. It's going to be like 10 years. So we've got 1 prince married, but we do have 1 who can be married. Now, I don't think there's a lot of point in getting him married off. He's only 2 years younger than his brother, or actually 5, but that's still very close. So if Prince Alfonso does not have children, that means that his younger brother would inherit, right? Sancho. The problem with that, arguably, is that he's only going to be a couple years younger, right? So he's not really going to be living that much longer. So it's unlikely. My guess is he's going to have a son. He's going to survive to have sons. Those sons are going to come of age. And when they do, he is going to be disinherited. Now, this is going to be a problem because he will then be a royal uncle who is already a secret blackmailer and may well be a blackmailer by that point, and he's no longer in line to the throne. He's going to be a very unhappy dude with 5 stars. We're going to need to keep him close to the king when that happens. Okay, so that's just a little bit of my thought about why or why not I may want to pick up a princess. All right, now he's got 2 command stars, which is unfortunate. Because I wouldn't mind him commanding over here, but I don't think we can afford to have a disloyal guy like that. All right, we've got a fort. Loyalty is a bit better now, so we can afford to think about the next thing. And, you know, silk is actually quite good. We've got it here too. But I think this is going to be the more profitable trade wing to work up because you've got a lot of ports here already. You've got 2 here, and then eventually we're going to get like 3. We've got 3 already. We can get like 4 over here. So if we can start building up our trade, I think that'd be good. Let's, though, go with the town watch first, just so we can get urban militia and stuff, and then we can go for a trader. Now, one of the things I love to do in this game, because they don't have a proper family tree. Okay, so we're going to say no, but Novgorod wants to marry us. You know, this is probably my oldest princess. Yeah, no thanks. You got another daughter. The family tree is very, very bare bones. And the thing that's tricky about it is you can't tell whether these new children are from the king or his heir, who is now married and therefore liable to have kids. So far we don't have any young sons, fortunately. So it's a little less of an issue. Gark is definitely a son of Alfonso VI. But as for Alfonso VII, you know, I'm not sure if these princesses are his, right, or his dad's. So it's a little weird, but I guess you know, it doesn't matter arguably too much. But when a son comes of age, I think it's going to be this guy's, but we'll have to kind of keep track of it. All right, it's 1072. And Sancho, all right. I'm really looking for like 3 quills. It doesn't matter all that much. But let's see, what do we want to build here? I don't know if it's worth going for a keep. I don't think it's worth going for farmland here. I think that urban militia, or the town watch rather, somewhat damages the mercenary potential. So yeah, let's actually just not even build it. What do they got? Yeah, they're just cranking out the urban militia. All right, this makes me nervous. I'm going to put him directly under the king. All these guys can be with Prince Alfonso, I guess. Actually, we should, yeah, you should all just be in the same stack. Okay, so this, could this take this, is the question. I think we could, but it might be tricky, so let's get a spear unit for some pinning. Let's get another urban militia for some armor piercing. And then I'm more worried about this, quite honestly, because there's no wars going on yet. I want to make sure that these guys are going to go to France rather than me, but I'm not sure that we can guarantee. All right. No ships sunk because there's no ships out there yet. Okay. So that is an emissary from the Byzantine. Now, the Byzantines do tend to have a lot of princesses. All right, Germans have accepted our offer. Now, you can usually tell Or if they're trying to ally with you, they will accept your request. So it's usually a no-brainer. Okay, so we are allied with the Germans now, and we're married to a princess of the German royal house. So theoretically, if they were to get wiped out, we could inherit some land here. And the frustrating thing about this is now would be the great time to try, because there's no border forts in Swabia. The king has got low influence, low command, relatively. But we wouldn't have had the infrastructure anyway. So you do what you can and hope maybe that things work out. Right, but otherwise, this is all looking very standard. There's our spearman. There's our urban militia. Let's check the spears for acumen. Okay, nothing. Okay, I think we will go with trade right now. The order of this, it doesn't matter too much, but ports don't by themselves bring in money unless there's already a trade route established from another nation. Trading posts, however, do make a tiny bit of local income. And then you build the port and connect it with ships to other ports, and you can start making a lot of trade money. So that's going to be the goal. Right, that's going to be 800. So we're doing okay in terms of cash right now. Feel like I need another archer unit. And let's get an urban militia in Valencia, and let's get another cav unit in Leon. All right, here we go. That's 3. Oh, there we go. There we go. Nice loyal general, 4 acumen quills, and 1 command star. So we can basically give him. We could give him. Okay, I thought there was more command given from these titles, but I guess not. Well, maybe I'll make him Duke of Leon anyway. It's right there. He's there. Now we've got a nice loyal general in charge. If we feel like it, if we get enough guys sort of built up, we can head into Portugal, right? All right, just a few more years. What is this? 2 more years for a keep. That's actually really good. And we do want to be checking this button because you can get some relatively cheap stuff. In fact, you know, it might be worth getting this because sometimes you want a catapult for siege purposes or for defense, quite frankly, and so it might be nice to have. Let's put it down here, I think. This is going to be my hub, right? Castile can reinforce all of my provinces. All right, you're nice and loyal, but not enough acumen yet. Got to move my emissary out of Germany. All right, still no new sons coming of age, just checking that I didn't miss any. Right, you go over here, you come over here. All right, that's not great, but... You know what? I think I'm going to go with the bishop this turn. We're going to get him down here just to spy out and see what the Almohads have. This is a kind of a tricky operation. Obviously, the first move is Cordoba, and that's awesome to take. The trick is that I want to make sure I can attack without being massively counterattacked on the next turn. And so I need to know what's in Grenada, but also Morocco, because both of these provinces can reinforce Cordoba. And once we get the keep in Leon, we're going to go right for Chapter House. I know it's kind of redundant that I have one here in Castile, and I won't be using it. I guess I could destroy it, but I'll just keep it because maybe we want to build 2 crusade markers at some point. Okay. What I really want to find is Almogavars. So Almogavars are an extremely rare unit in Medieval Total War, which is a javelin unit that actually has a nice charge. They're like spears and heavy javelins. And they're super rare, but they're like available around here. And I don't know if they're available in Navarre, but I'm quite sure they are in Aragon. They come along once in a blue moon. You can't retrain them because they're mercs. But I want to kind of keep an eye out for them. Spanish Javelin Men, it's not worth it because I can train my own for a lot cheaper upkeep. Arab Infantry look cool, but are pretty weak in a lot of ways. It might be, at some point, useful to pick them up if I need fast troops. This is an interesting heavy cav unit. Not going to take it, though. I love the look of these guys. But again, we're going to hold off on all this stuff. Okay, no wars. No wars. Okay, actually, no. We got a war. Germany versus the Danes. And the Polish. All right, so we need to start cruising around to see what they've got. So, interestingly, Germany starts off with some Vikings in, like, Saxony or Friesland. They otherwise can't train them, so it's neat that they have them initially. Let's go to Saxony. Now we can do a little trick here to see who owns what. Just hold your agent and wait. All right, Danish province. All right, Franconia. German province. Brandenburg. Polish. All right, so the Polish took Brandenburg. Pomerania. Rebel. Okay, interesting. Bohemia. German. Okay, it's a little OP, so I don't like to do it too much. It also has a bit of a delay. So our emissary now, by the way, 2 stars, which is awesome. Let's move over here. So all of the trouble is right along this front. Now, it would be awesome if we could actually get, get an inheritance this early, but I don't think it's going to happen. All right, well, we could actually build as well here, and it might be good to start going for the port. It's so tricky, though. Leon starts with a horse breeder, which you can't even build at the fort level, so it's kind of nuts. But we go for horse farmer. It gives us nothing, but Jeannettes are at the next tier. So I'm tempted because building a port is not going to allow us to build ships. I think we need this. Yes, we need a keep in order to build any ships at all. So let's actually go with a keep because it's going to be necessary and it's going to help our defenses here. Keep completed in Castile. We've got another daughter. And we've also got glorious achievement. So we're going to get a message next turn about what we got and what we didn't get. Now, Castile, I forgot to check. Castile is not our only homeland. And in fact, we get pathetic return on our homelands. I didn't even notice this. So obviously we got all these crusades. But for homelands, we get 1 point for Castile and 1 point for Portugal, which we don't even start off owning. I think this is intended to reflect the fact that in the Iberian Peninsula at this time, you didn't have one Spain faction. You had a kingdom of Castile, and you had a separate kingdom of Leon, I believe. And then you had Aragon, and then you had Navarre. And all these were kind of their own place. So we don't even get Leon on our homelands because it's not really ours. But Portugal is somehow, so that's a little weird. So we're not going to get it. Sadly, we're not going to get points for that, which is why we didn't get the announcement because it's 11:01 and we missed it. I was not paying attention. Well, big deal. That would have cost us troops, money, and we would have gotten a very unruly province that we needed to garrison, and probably drawn the ire of all of our neighbors because we would leave ourselves vulnerable for 1 measly GA point. Not worth it. Conquest is actually giving us more than our homeland. So this is not an auspicious start, but that's okay. We're trying to build up inheritance if possible. Okay, so this is interesting. 2 command stars. I could put him in charge of like Valencia or Navarre, but he's actually pretty loyal. I'm going to leave him outside the stack. So if you're new to the game, loyal generals, you want to keep all your guys under the command of a nice loyal general. And, you know, usually that's your king, obviously. He's loyal to himself. Or a guy like this, or a guy like this. But sometimes you want to keep stacks separate. And the only reason I want to do that here is because we've got a very loyal general who's the governor, right? And then this guy is okay, but if things go south, he could become a problem later on. So I'm going to leave him outside the stack. Now, if we are invaded here, he is going to take over because he's got 2 command stars to this guy's 1. So he's going to take over leadership, so that's fine. I am, however, going to make this guy the governor or the Duke of Valencia just because he's got 4 command stars. He's urban militia, but that's okay. I like to roleplay a little bit in that I don't like to give peasants or archers or basic units like governorships most of the time. But I figure in this case, we can treat our new governor, Lord Gelmires, as a self-made man, kind of like El Cid, right? Okay, so yes, Denmark here. Loyalty's not great. In fact, just to make this easier, I'll move my princess up here, and we'll start getting eyes on the conflict and seeing what the border fort situation is. Okay, so now we've got our keep completed. All right, what we want to do here is start working on assassins. I know that seems counterintuitive in a way, but let's see. We're going to need this before we can get inquisitors, a castle. And so assassins come first. Let's see. Eventually, though, we are going to go... Yeah, how about this? So Castile, it is going to be my Inquisitor province, and eventually Grand Inquisitors. So maybe I don't want to go assassins right yet, but maybe I want to do that in a place like Valencia or Leon that isn't going to be geared towards training other stuff, like particularly Valencia. Navarre can't do it because it doesn't have a keep, but Valencia will. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Valencia is going to be my assassin province. This is going to be my religious agents province and, you know, military stuff. And this is going to be military and crusades. And this is going to be just kind of whatever eventually when I'm sick of looking for mercs that won't show up. What do we got here? We got some interesting things, though. Fairies, which is, you know, horse archers. Some just straight up horse archers. The cost of mercs is like double that of what they would normally be if you train them yourself. So it's not something I want to do, you know, just willy-nilly. Okay, so then what do I want to do here in Castile? I don't think I need a chapter house to build a monastery. It doesn't say it's a requirement. Do I want to spend 2,000? Let's try to make a little bit of money and also improve our odds of surviving a siege by building a keep and curtain wall first. All right, so they went for Portugal. That's actually great. Okay, really, really interesting stuff. So this 7% loyalty. All right, that is really cool. They're going to have trouble holding on to it, and there very well may be a rebellion. So this is hopefully going to keep them from attacking me for some time, long enough to maybe get a crusade going. So again, I always like to go for the keep and curtain wall. So without it, this, which the keep style building, which looks basically like it does here, has a wooden wall as the outer wall, which means that any unit can go and attack it, and basically they're using torches to hack it down. If you build this, that turns this wooden wall into stone, so they have to go through the gate or use siege weapons, which are pretty rare early on. So this is a great investment, I think, early. I like to avoid the ballista towers, which are the next level, because they tend to hit your own walls, which is kind of hilarious. Okay, yeah, armored spearmen. Cool looking unit, but I'm not going to take them. All right, so we've got 2 archers. I probably need more. Yeah, we need to get going on archers. All right, we did actually a little bit of conversion here, and I might want to, yeah, keep going with that. Okay, so what do they have in Aragon if they were to attack us? Couple urban militia, couple archers. So they get a lot of archers and like 4 urban militia, and they've got some useless ballista units and some, you know, royal knights. This is going to be the biggest problem, of course. But we've got royal knights and Jeannettes. I think we could be okay if we like really tried to focus on them. In fact, I should probably go more for archers than Jeannettes and get some spearmen and get like a basic line. But let's see how this is going. So Bohemia has fallen to the Polish. And what about like Austria? I think they start with Silesia anyway. Brandenburg, I think that's German for now. But Friesland, notice, so there's a civil war. Damn. Ugh, I would love to have, you know, have agents up around here to take advantage of this. So it looks like basically the influence of the German king, the emperor, has dropped because he's lost territory. He lost Saxony, he lost Bohemia. These are big. And then Friesland either rebelled or I think it's more likely there was a civil war. Now, Flanders is French initially. Lorraine is, I think... No, this is initially German. So we'll see if they still hold it. And we'll just sort of keep moving around the map. All right. Yep, unrest. So this would be great for me to have spies right now. Because if I get a spy in Portugal and unrest happens, my spy gets credit for that, even though it would have happened anyway. But we don't have the tech, necessarily. Okay, so the King of the Danes has died. That's fine. And let's just double check our... okay, the goals are the same. No difference. 2 provinces gets us 1. This is also a bad return. So we're going to be, like, we're dead last in the Glorious Achievements race. That's okay. We're going to keep ourselves under, like, a very low profile. You know what, let's keep, you know, some decent Jeannettes here because this is going to actually, I think, be really helpful. One thing I noticed, like, game mechanics-wise, in some recent, relatively recent campaigns, is that speed on the battlefield seems to be super important in a way that I hadn't noticed before. And I got this by playing the Picts. All right, let's bite the bullet. Invest, what is this? 12 years and 2,000 florins. So that's a lot. I noticed this playing the Picts in the Viking invasion campaign. And the Picts are a very interesting faction with some weird units. And some of those units have great speed. And in particular, I leaned on the Pictish Raiders. This is a light cav unit with just a sword, and like they don't even have shirts on. They've got like no armor. Their stats are not that great, but they're very fast. And what I noticed was that I was able to get like a bunch of those units and just rush my army towards the enemy. And by quickly enveloping them, not even attacking, I had like a front line of Celtic warriors, which are also a fast infantry unit. You charge them straight forward. You have your Pictish Raiders on the flanks. And just by them being there all of a sudden in the enemy's flanks with a bunch of infantry charging towards them, that by itself was like, seemed like it was enough to deal a massive morale shock to the enemy. And so it was a lot of fun. And I think we could do something similar with the Spanish in battle as well. But let's not get distracted. That's not the point of this campaign. We are trying for this. Yes. Okay, so this is Aragon offering us their princess. In this dangerous world in which we live, a solid alliance can mean the difference between life and death. In order to propose a long-lasting agreement between our nations, I offer my daughter's hand in marriage as a gesture of goodwill. I await your reply with trepidation. King Sancho I of Aragon. And I love this message. The first time I got this playing this game, like 23 years ago, it just made it feel like the choice here was so momentous. right? That I await your reply with trepidation. Like they're worried about how I'm going to respond. So I'm going to say yes to this. Now, there are very low odds that I'm going to inherit, right? Because he's got a ton of family members here, and if anyone invades him, they're just going to wipe out the faction at once. So there's nothing to inherit. But I will remind you, this is my second son, Prince Sancho here, who is only like 5 years younger than the current heir and is very unlikely to inherit regardless. So I'm going to say yes just because I want the alliance, and if there's a chance, I'm going to remember that Prince Sancho is married to Princess Teresa of Aragon, so we're going to say yes to that. Now, maybe that signals that they are interested in invading Toulouse, which is very vulnerable, I should think, to their attack. Okay, we got Vikings. I think we're going to want them. I am a Viking enthusiast in terms of this game, anyway. For real life, the Vikings are super overrated, I think. There's a coolness factor, you know. I guess I can't argue with that, but yeah, like they're not that great. But in the game, they have armor piercing, good attack, good morale. So yeah, I want them. I want them in my king's stack, and we can use them to hack down any uppity Aragonese who feel like betraying us. Let's get another bishop, though. And we can see here that Grenada has nothing? Not even a single building. My gosh. All right, well, I guess that's good news. Ooh, and they got feudal knights here. Or feudal men-at-arms and feudal sergeants. This is interesting. So this is a Christian rebellion, I believe. And that means that they're going to get some higher tech stuff. So I actually would like... I wonder if we can bribe them. It looks like the Germans still have Burgundy and Tyrolia. All right, what is this going to cost? I'm going to just queue that up. It's going to take a long time, and maybe if I can save the cash between now and then, I can actually make it happen. Okay, Swabia and Bavaria, I think we want to check. Let's also see Switzerland. This is crazy how just the Germans have collapsed. And I really wish we could have grabbed some of that land because we're, you know, married to the king and all, but... okay, what else do we want here in this stack? If we were to go down here right now, so they got some Gulam bodyguards that they're just training, unless this is a disinherited prince. And they've got an interesting unit. What I want to do at some point is play this faction and go really camel heavy, because I've never done that. But I love the idea of Berber camels. But what else do we have? Okay, very few Gulam bodyguards. And then a lot of archers. I think we could do quite well against them with this, because we've got enough archers to keep theirs busy, I think. And, I mean, their urban militia is a problem. But we can attack from, like, all three of these provinces into Cordoba, too. And our cavalry is better, right? So we could win on the cav. It kind of feels like I'm going urban militia heavy, but let's do one more. And yeah, let's do another one out of Leon. Starting to eat into our profits a bit, but okay, we do need a church in order to get the chapter house. So we'll do that, and that gives us another way to get bishops if we really need them. All right, I know we're going long. We're doing this for, what, an hour and a half at this point, but I don't care. All right, getting some knighthood. Let's see. All right, so they're getting some more camels up here. It's like they heard me talk about how I think they're cool. Okay, and I think I want you... We've got 4 Jeanettes in that stack. Let's bring it out over here. All right, Maraboutine infantry. So this is also interesting. I love the look of this unit. It looks so cool. And they're interesting. They're javelins, 60 men. I like them so much. This is a unit for my imaginary mod for this game set in a second age of Middle Earth, right? And I'll pitch it to you probably in episode 2 because everyone's checked out by this point. But basically, a second age mod, these guys would be awesome for Harad, right? Just be so perfect. Okay, but let's not train him yet. We don't need him. The income is starting to go down, so we need to start thinking about how to make up for that. And we don't really have much that we can do. This is going to make 250, but I think it's only going to be like total. So currently we're making 210, so I think that means it's not going to be very much extra income. All right, well, we can't do anything else. Let's that's right, we do have a bishop. I guess I don't need to send him to Portugal, right? We can send him to Grenada. We'll have a guy in Grenada and a guy in Morocco just to see what's there. And once this church is done, we'll get a crusade assembled. I'm going to take a turn off from training, I think. All right, you're trying to bribe. Okay, so Swabia... All right, we lost a princess. We lost a princess. All right, so I guess that's fine. We're using them as spies. Loyalty's okay. So for what they have, they're still doing decent. They're trying Portugal again. Great. Oh no, El Cid dies of old age. Well, so here's how dying of old age works in this game, and it's unfortunate, but I'm not sure what the best workaround would be. Basically, they keep the same stats. Same stats, traits, all of their attributes are identical. They have a different name. He even keeps the title, right? So he just kind of takes over. An underling who is somehow very well ingrained with the infrastructure and is able to take up duties exactly like his lord, all of that stuff. He takes over. So that's unfortunate, but it does mean you get to benefit from the really nice command stars and all of that. So materialist, so he has some acumen, so it might be worth giving him a title now, actually. Yeah, 3 quills. Okay, so we can make him King of Navarre. And I think that might be decent because Navarre is not super important. That's going to help his loyalty a little bit. And now I feel like we could put him on top of the stack with less concern. All right, very low, 47%. You know what? All right, we were trying to bribe rebels. Okay, so we'll keep you just back here so that any assassins in the area don't immediately get to kill him. But let's move the bishop over here instead. And what are you doing? Oh, are you moving somewhere? Did I intend to move you like... I can't tell if she's on the move. We'll give her another turn. And then we'll see if we get a big rebellion here. All right, yes, so we've got 4 Jeanettes. Let's go with... I don't have any archers in Valencia, so we'll do that. All right, we've got Prince Fernando of age. All right, King of Hungary sends an emissary, and that is a princess, it looks like. So we are going to deny the offer. Okay, I think this is our first, the son of our first of our heir. All right, weak principles, but great warrior. Okay, this is actually great for like a guy who's not going to inherit. So Prince Fernando is the son of King Alfonso VI. And we can see he's not taking over, right? The heir position, obviously. Prince Gark is, I believe, still the son of King Alfonso VI. But this guy, Prince Ferdinand, may be the son of who will be King Alfonso VII, right? I think he's his son. Not sure, but we'll know if he takes over the kingship. All right, but when Princess came of age, let's get her up like Swabia, I guess. Let's keep moving around like that. Okay, so she's stayed in Morocco for some reason. I'm not sure why. Let's go up to Friesland, and yeah. Very low, so loyalty's decreasing. We're keeping Catholicism high. There are archers in Valencia. $716. Okay. Pretty soon we'll have a keep, and then we'll be able to get going on trade via port and shipwright and all of that stuff. Perfect. More unrest in Portugal. Byzantines are the richest. I don't think they're at war with anybody. Well, let's just double check that. Oh, they are. I've missed this. They are at war with the papacy and the Turkish. Okay. And the Germans have added a war against the Italians, but they're now at peace with the Danes. All right, very interesting. Very interesting stuff. So there is a war going on around here, but we've got kind of chaos in Germany, as is often the case. So Franconia's got a couple of big rebel stacks. Nothing too impressive, but a lot of them. Go to Lorraine, I guess. And let's actually move some of those princesses. I want to go over here. So we knew, I think the king was in Anatolia, right? That's what it said about them being the richest. So we'll assume that's maybe a front line, and we'll also go to Lesser Armenia. And those princesses can work in tandem. So here's another Christian rebellion. I'm going to get my emissary right over here, because I'm assuming, I mean, they might not win it, but they may. All right, Fernando is 17. Yeah, let's keep him. Actually, let's bring him to Leon so he can spearhead the attack if we need to, if we can't bribe an army. All right, we've got more interesting stuff here. So Italian infantry are quite good, but they're also quite expensive, 124 a turn. So I'm going to say no to that, and I'm kind of thinking about the catapults, though. Let's do that. Maybe... yeah, we'll just bring him down here. I think they'll end up maybe in Valencia. Alright, so spearmen, 2 spearmen, a couple of archers. Okay, but we've got to keep. So now I'm going to go keep in Curtain Wall. I know, I keep delaying, but I want to make sure we are secure. Alright, finally Chapter House, 500. Right, Gark is come of age, and he is strange. All right, -1 morale, -10 happiness, but he's got excellent command. My gosh, and the loyalty. So I have not enjoyed the quality of the Spanish royal house. Evidently, they are quite good. Now the strange is tricky. He's got 6 command, so that would be giving everyone extra honor. Or I keep saying honor because I've been playing a bit of Shogun lately, but. Is it worth it for the morale debuff, right? And this is only going to get worse. Ooh, we could get our own Almohad Urban Militia. You know, that feels very appropriate. I'm going to take it because I think that sort of thing happened a lot. Right? During the Reconquista, we had these, alliances between different... Christians and Muslims, and kind of an interesting, chaotic mess of things in the medieval period. So I'm going to play up with that, and we're going to take some Muslim mercenaries, essentially. And that'll be a nice counter to some of their own units, but they're really focusing on archers, it looks like. All right, we want another rebellion. We want it to take so that we can then swoop in. But if it doesn't, we'll just do a crusade. Alright, kind of chaos over here. Good. A more Christian rebellion in Portugal, English. And the Byzantine Emperor has died. Just of old age. So let's take a look at this. We had some fighting going on, and it's a bit wild. So Anatolia is still held, the fort rather, by the Turks. About to fall. Probably will lose it, but they could get counterattacked. Let's move up into Rum with that princess and just see. 24%. Okay, so we're ready to bribe if this army takes over. The problem is this is too small of an army, so we probably shouldn't even bother because they can just move troops in whenever they want. So, okay, let's bring her up to Trebizond. And okay, so Lorraine is held by the French. The Germans are still just at war with the Italians and the Polish. Now, I don't have that many alliances, but they're both marriage alliances. And one is with Aragon, who's done nothing yet. Kind of disappointing. Okay, we do have some big siege weapons. I'm going to hold off. Mangonels, I don't know that it matters too much. We could absolutely get backstabbed by the English, who are at war with nobody currently. They're in fact allied with the French. So this is maybe a bit of a risk. Yeah, let's bring you over here. And let's bring you with El Cid, right? That seems to make sense. I think I'll leave you right here as just a fighter to have with the king as a reinforcement or something. Okay. Making 500. So let's now go with a port. And maybe we'll even get us a tiny bit of income due to trade routes that have been set up by maybe the Sicilians or the Italians. We can't see all of the ships. You can only see ships in provinces or in sea regions that are adjacent to the ones that you own. But all right, so there's been some build-up. The Almohads held this long enough to build a fort. And the rebels here are pretty useless. This guy's farming some XP, though, from killing those rebels. That's fine. 31% loyalty. All right. All right, still nothing super interesting. Got up to 13% Catholicism in Morocco, which is going to be nice eventually. I do want to take this and probably this and probably all the way to here. At some point, like late, post the medieval period, you did hear of, Spain taking fortresses, certainly along the coast. So I think that's perfectly within a role play to do. Not that we're super role playing, but we're still having some fun. All right, let's just keep going. What I'd love to do here is end with a crusade. All right, or a sort of a move, like a definitive move. Right, Aragonese have the happiest people. That's totally to be expected because they are the smallest faction on the map. We've got another son being born. So Prince Ferdinand, Prince Pedro, I believe, again, sons not of the current king, but sons of the current heir. But we'll see. The way we'll know is if when our current king dies, if Prince, what's his name? Prince Pedro, or Ferdinand rather. Prince Ferdinand, who I think is the first son of our heir. If Prince Ferdinand becomes the heir when his dad takes over, then we'll know that he is the son of his dad, not the son of his grandfather. Makes sense. Right. We've got the chapter house, so now we can do this. Crusade. Now, typically what you want to do is have other infrastructure in a province so that you can set up a crusade that has units that you can attach to it. We don't need to do that in this case because we're going to be crusading here, and we can just bring in these guys as reinforcements. They don't need to be part of the crusade. So that's what we will do. Now, if the rebels can't get it together to hold Portugal, we will just be crusading near them, and then eventually we'll get Portugal, but it's probably going to be too late for our glorious achievements count. 1125. Actually, we may be able to make it. So again, that's going to help our influence, which is 5 currently, which is nice. But it's going to help it because we're not doing a lot of conquering otherwise. All right, but since we've got the crusade, what else do we want to build here? I think in the meantime, probably archers are going to be the most useful unit, and you need it. You need the boyar to build the armorer, and we're going to take advantage of that for sure. So let's do that. We can always be training archers out of here. I don't think we really need any more buildup. So the Byzantines have held on pretty easily to Anatolia. Great, more unrest. All right, and here we go. Sicily. Prince Fernando. This is a bit confusing because the Sicilians are coded a bit wrong. There's bugs with their names. There's bugs with how the game understands them. They are not actually of the Papal States. This is really Sicily. But this is my 3rd son, right, of the current king, Alfonso VI. And when he dies, it's even less likely that a Sicilian family member is going to die out, right? So I don't think it's worth it, but let's see. We've got Aragon and we've got Sicily. One thought is I could reject this and hold off for later. And I think that's what I'm going to do. Because I don't think Sicily is going to die out at a time when this guy is the heir. I guess it could happen. But let's see. Ferdinand is still 7. All right, that looks a bit better. Feudal sergeants, at least. Vikings with armor are a bit of a problem, actually, where we're fighting. Because we want to be fighting, eventually we may be fighting in the desert, maybe sooner than we expect. And given their cost, I'm going to hold off. Armor and the desert are not a good match. All right, but let's see. Do we want to buff anything up in terms of units? I don't have any spears over there in Leon, so let's go with 1. Egyptians. All right, the King of Aragon has died of an illness. His heir has taken over command of the Aragonese. Now, one other complicating factor for inheritance may well be the king of the faction that you've married into. So in this case, this king is dead. His daughter is the one who my heir has married, right? Now, her brother, right? My heir's wife's brother is now the king, presumably. When he dies, it may happen in a few turns if they attack France and get unlucky. Another brother is going to take over, or a son, right? And so I don't know if that plays in to the inheritance. So we will just note that the King of Aragon, their original king, has died of an illness. The King of England is dead. And so maybe that is going to affect things. All right, Alfonso VI, great builder. That's awesome. Happiness, loyalty. Beautiful. Okay. You're going to go over to Leon. And, ooh. Very interesting. So they actually won 2 more years for that crusade to be ready to go. Now, I don't think they're going to hold this at all. But it's at least distracting, bleeding resources. But the thing that I am really liking is that the Almohads have not been lazy about building up Cordoba. So they are going right for the castle. That's great. I don't have any castles yet myself, although I will next year. Yeah, I'm going to hold off. I think we get enough catapults for what we've got anyway. Actually, no, you know what? We got a castle in Cordova, right? We may need the extra help. So we got three catapults now in my armies. Okay, we got the Boyar done. So again, we're not making a lot of cash yet, but if we take this, we will. But now we go for shipwright. We've got to do that. We start eventually cranking up boats. Now, is this making any money? No. We can tell if you're making money when, well, obviously when this shows a number. And what that means is like in this case, it would be the Italians would have a trading post and a unbroken connection of ships from this to this. But maybe they do, and they just can't trade with me because Genoa also produces silk or something. And I think that's the case. So, not the best. Okay, and again, even though we're losing a bit of money on this, we may as well think about this. We could go for spearmen here, which I think we probably do want to do. Or we could go for a bit of income. Let's do that. Now, income from trading posts themselves is tiny, 39. But, you know, the earlier you get it, the earlier it does eventually pay for itself. And it's necessary to do trading, so may as well. All right, they're sending a big stack into Portugal. All right, the Almohads really want an alliance. Oh, this is interesting. So they're at war with the Egyptians. This is actually perfect. We're going to deny that alliance. And, yeah, let's keep our catapults. Let's keep them right here. That should be fine. Next turn, we'll have the Crusade marker ready to go. And they may hold Portugal now because, you know, they get a big army there. That's just going to make Cordoba that much more vulnerable. Or we could even send our crusade against Portugal, but the problem there is we're probably not going to get enough troops to do that. I want to get the most out of my crusades, so I don't want to do like a double whammy, right, simultaneously. It may be a bit tricky, though. I do want to give some thought to it. Very interesting. We get Bulgarian brigands. Okay, but we're just going to hold off still. And let's just think about the basics, like spearmen and urban militia. Again, we may swap some of these troops around, but this is partly we need to keep a force to dissuade the Aragonese. And just so you know, like in a lot of other games, and even in this game to some extent, it feels at times like it doesn't matter who the king is, and that's a real shame. I like some of like the later Total Wars where each faction has like a personality that you can see somewhere in the diplomacy screen. And when the current king is like ruling, his unique traits may make his faction more aggressive or something. And so there's a real difference in behavior of a faction when a new king takes over. I think that's awesome. I think that's kind of the case in Medieval 1, based on some developer comments that, you know, exist on the forums from 20 years ago. That in terms of like remembering past treacherous deeds, like maybe if you backstabbed an ally, that gets remembered during the life of the current king in which it happened, and maybe even during his son's life. But after a couple of generations, they're going to forget about it. So the turnover does kind of matter. And we may see some different behavior from this new king. My king is 56, so he may be dying relatively soon. Let's see what else we want to build here. Castle and ring wall are also a really, really good maneuver, just because it adds that extra, well, it adds an extra layer around the castle. So it looks more like this than this with a single curtain wall. But let's go raid for the monastery. So this is what we need for our inquisitors. So 6 turns, and we will start having a fully legal Catholic assassin, basically. And so that's going to allow us maybe to capitalize on that German civil war. Let's get another princess up around here. All right, yeah, the Byzantines are looking strong as always. Let's Go over to Georgia, and let's go down to Lesser Armenia. Unfortunately, the Turks tend not to do well long term. And it's a shame because I'd love to start an early game where they become a big threat, but it just doesn't happen. All right, Maria is too old. Byzantines own Bulgaria. So this is telling us where the king is, basically, of the faction. When you get one of these messages... okay. Almohad has died, and the Germans have been excommed. Ooh, baby. All right, I'm going to hold off on that because, you know, we may try for a marriage at some point. All right. See anything good? No, same stuff. I mean, feudal men-at-arms, this is a great unit, but I don't know if it's worth the upkeep for what we're going to get out of it. Yeah. So we can't have this, right? Portugal can invade, you know, any one of my 3 territories, and we just don't have any safe land. So we're going to keep the priest here, and we're going to hope that this army, I think I'm going to keep this in Leon to dissuade them from attacking it. The terrain is going to be hilly, but it's going to be pretty open, so they're going to get full use out of their, you know, whatever archers they happen to bring. We're going to maybe train another unit. Yeah, let's get an archer. And let's do it. It feels rather momentous. So, 1250 for the crusade. That'll get the Pope's support. So we're going to spend that money. That instantly gets taken out, and we instantly get a crusade marker with some units. So, fanatics. These guys are really interesting. Excellent morale. Very strong charge, but very weak defense. So just throw them in and forget about them. Order foot soldiers, really solid, but otherwise kind of unremarkable. Spearmen, you know. And then we've got, you know, a knight unit. So this is a Knights of Santiago unit, and it's tough to say. Did he get the bonus, right? I don't think he did, because he's got 3 stars. Oh, actually, no, maybe he does. Because the 3 stars are giving him 1 valor. Yeah. Every 2 stars gives you 1 valor. And he's got 2 valor, so that must be coming from this, right? So that's actually awesome. I'm happy to see that. So we've got a 3-star general leading this crusade, in theory. And we're going to start war right now. Let's just check the how the crossings are going to be. Inland, hills, and... okay, this is a river, though. See, the waterway section at the bottom there does mention a river. So we don't want to attack Cordoba from Valencia alone, or even predominantly from Valencia. So I think I leave El Cid behind. It feels a bit risky. But I'm going to leave Prince Gark with some spearmen. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I think we got to do this. We'll send the king right down. We'll train up some archers for Castile. We'll train up... yeah, we're training archers in Leon. Let's see. We've already got... we can go with an armorer, so let's... where do we want to pile armor? I think Leon would be the place to do it. These both have iron. But I think we want to have one place where we don't have super armored troops and one where we do. And since we're going to do Crusades out of here and we're going to get Knights of Santiago out of here, let's go with the armorer there. And that's 400. Okay, everything else is just fine. I guess we ought to build some more urban militia just because. So we've got, let's see, a couple strong units of spears and a knight. We've got 2 other royal knights. We've got 4 of the Jeannettes, 3 archers. And in terms of spears, we've got the 2 ordered foot soldiers and 1 here, which is not awesome. We do have some Vikings. We do have a catapult. And we've got some other, you know, very light kind of troops. I think that would be sufficient. And we could even peel off a few units here if we really wanted to. Like, for example, we've already got 1 catapult. Let's bring 2. And let's bring the Almohad Urban Militia. I think that makes sense. And a single spear unit. And that should be enough to ensure that we're not... in other words, enough troops are coming from the other provinces that our main attack, I think, is not coming from Valencia, and so we shouldn't see a river crossing in this battle. Now, I love the units close up, too. Just the little models of them in attack pose. All right, so that's going to be the goal. I think this is a good place to end it. We've just started war with the Almohads. This is the first faction we've attacked, and we're like, how many years in? 50 years in? I guess more like 30 or so. 40. But that'll be the goal next time, to fight this battle. We're probably going to do it in person because we've got the king and the heir here, and so this is going to be a little, potentially dangerous. But we also have some good opportunities to get a very wealthy province, remove it from this faction who really otherwise doesn't have a lot of infrastructure. They've got some stuff down here, so I think they can... This is where they get their Almohad Urban Militia. I think they get their camels out of here too. But you see, it's not a lot of good stuff. I think they've got basically nothing in Granada. And so if we even sweep them out of Cordoba entirely, we could get this without a fight, in theory. And maybe get some nice bonuses and influence for our king. So that's the episode. It's like a 2-hour behemoth, but it's the first episode of what I hope will be an interesting campaign. We're going to see if we get the inheritance to work out. I'm going to make up a little family tree in paper, so I'll be able to follow along with like the lines of who's married to who and whose kids are what, and we'll try to keep this straight. I hope you will follow along as well. See you in the next one. Take care until then.